Hi everyone and welcome along. So it's a very hot week in the UK this week at the time of filming, but we are soldiering on with some lovely autumnal content. Now, my book, A Year of Watercolour, is all about tracking the changing seasons and really observing what's going on outside your front door. So I love to do some painting tutorials where we do almost more like a botanical study, a nature journal entry. So today we are going to paint the Japanese maple tree, and we're going to have a go at the tree in full and also a close-up of the beautiful leaf as it goes this beautiful red in autumn. So grab your paints and let's get started. So to begin with, let's paint the tree. So I'm going to start with a sort of pencil line, and the trunk of a Japanese maple sort of there's quite a lot of almost branches starting almost from the ground, so we've got a few key trunks, and now I'm going to sort of draw in a rough shape that I want this tree to be, and just keep a few branches going, so they're always coming from these key main branches going up and then sort of branching outwards, because you see a lot of the actual tree in a Japanese maple, which is quite interesting. Okay, so I think that is how we'll go. So we're painting it from afar, which means we can sort of create clouds of leaves. I'm going to use cadmium red, a little bit of cadmium orange, a little bit, just for a highlight colour, and then some permanent rose, and some Alizarin Crimson, or Alizarin Crimson. Oh, I say it wrong every time, but I don't really mind. I quite enjoy saying it wrong. Okay, size 0 brush, I think. I'm going to begin with sort of playing around with cadmium red in a fairly sort of dilute kind of manner. Now I am placing in sort of cloud clusters of leaves, and what I want to do, you can see I'm holding the brush sort of quite low to the page and I'm angling it to the side, so I'm getting a bit of a sort of dash shape with my size 0 brush. And this is how I'm going to begin, just sort of building in these clouds with a sort of fairly diluted cadmium red. But they are going to sort of greet each other, these clouds. They'll meet and we'll have some sort of extra protruding bits. It's not all just going to be neat and tidy sections. So we want to sort of be building up these little sections, and also ones that are not just around the edge but in the tree as well. But we want to see some gaps. So I think when you're doing something like this, it's easiest to think in clusters and clumps, but I like to call them clouds. And we're just beginning with the cadmium red, and that's a good place to start. So even within just doing the red, you can see there are highlights and lowlights. But what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take a bit of cadmium orange, mix it with some permanent rose to create just a slightly different tone. And with a 2/10 brush now, I'm going to come into some of these areas and add this colour in, just to add a little bit more interest and shaping. It's particularly to some of the lighter ones, and you can sort of add a few extra dabs around the edges as well if you want to keep sort of building up the shape. But essentially what we're doing now is just creating a more realistic variety of tones within this beautiful tree, because the Japanese maple leaf, which we'll paint next, will include all of these different colours. And now I'm taking some Alizarin Crimson, and I'm really now looking to the sections in the middle of the tree and towards the bottom of the tree, because this is going to help us give a sense of the depth of the interior leaves that don't see the sun quite so much, and also just giving us, yeah, a much more sort of rounded feel to those. I'm still using my 2/10 brush. It feels like going down into that slightly smaller brush now for this. Works really nicely. So I'm going to keep adding some leaves as well into the sort of lower end of some of these sections. So we're sort of gradually filling up some of the gaps, but we want to maintain some of those gaps, and we want to keep giving this sort of variety of tone. And then on the sort of underside of some of these lower ones, we definitely want that darker colour, because the sun is going to get to those the least. Right, I'm really happy with that, and now we can look at the trunk and the branches. Now, the maple tree, anyway, the wood is quite dark, the bark is quite dark, but also because we're going to be painting this tree trunk from quite far away, so that means the colours will mute down a bit, and also a lot of the branches we're going to see are going to be within those leaves, so they wouldn't sort of see the sun very much. So we want a dark colour. So I've got some burnt sienna and some Moonglow here, two lovely sort of deep dark colours when they're mixed together, which is going to provide a really nice basis for this. So we want to sort of this to have dried by the time we start painting in our tree. So I've got my 2/10 again, and I'm going to start at the bottom, and I'm sort of working with this colour quite diluted, so you can see it's just cooled down the burnt sienna by adding in the Moonglow. And to start off with, I'm just painting in, and the colour's really quite dilute, it's quite nice and pale, but if we start to add in a bit more concentrated colour, we'll start to get a nice deep dark rich colour. So I'm going to add in some Paynes Grey, but I also want to make sure I've got a really nice sort of not too wet concentrated mix. So I'm doing a little bit over here that doesn't have a huge amount of water to it, so that looks really deep and dark at the moment. And if I take my 4/10 brush, just make sure that brush is a little bit wet, and I start to add it there, you'll see, wow, that is really, really nice and dark. So it's nice to have the lighter in first and then be able to add that low light colour. And now what I'm going to do is I am going to begin painting in branches that these are the ones that are going to sort of go in behind the leaves, I suppose. So we need the 4/10 brush to give us some really good control. So I'm following some of the pencil lines. And then if I sort of feel so inclined, I might just sort of veer off on my own. I find this kind of project very satisfying to do. I love painting in branches in behind leaves. But I've found from having a look at the real thing that you also see quite a lot of the branches just sort of in front of the leaves as well, and I think for that the rigger brush is brilliant for that, to be able to take a nice long line like that and paint it sort of over the top. So we're going to be doing a combination of the rigger brush and also the 4/10 brush. So I'm just going to be working my way up, following the pencil lines, usually sort of starting with the 4/10 brush, and then once I've sort of established how much I've drawn in behind the leaves, then I can add in 1 or 2 with the rigger brush after that. So here's my tree looking really lovely, and to finish off, what I want to do is get a little bit of the Alizarin Crimson and a bit of the shadow. Just knock that back down there. Right, so what I'm going to do now with my size 0 brush is I just want to put in this shadowy colour in just 1 or 2 areas, because it just makes the tree that little bit more 3-dimensional. We don't want too much of it, but I think that really helps with making it feel more 3-dimensional. And there we are. So that is our maple tree, our Japanese maple, and now we're going to have a little look at the leaf itself. So it's got a little stalk, and then from there it's got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, so I'm just counting 1 up the middle, then 2 coming off at the sides, 3 a bit more wide, and then 2. You know what I mean when I was just counting and saying random numbers there. Essentially this is our leaf here. And I've got a size 4 brush here, and I'm going to wake up some cadmium red, some cadmium orange, and of course the tones that we've been using, the Alizarin Crimson and the permanent rose once again. Having woken up those colours, I've now got my size 8 brush at the ready, and I'm going to work in with my lightest colour first. So I am just going to send a bit of colour up each branch, a bit of cadmium orange, like that, okay? And then almost immediately I want to go down to my size 4 brush, and I want my permanent rose mixed with my cadmium orange, and I want to start now building the shape of this brush. So each section of the leaf is a pointed sort of a pointed tapered line like that. So I'm still using colour quite lightly, quite dilute, and as long as I work fast enough. It is a hot day today. There we go. There we are. And now, going down to my size 0 brush and working quite fast, I want to take my cadmium red and just flick in those little serrated edges. Now you can see that if the leaf has dried too fast, and I haven't made it in time as this one, because what we want is this nice smooth blend, what you can do is just with a wet brush, 1 or 2 brush strokes will just soften that in. But ideally this is all about working quite fast, and if not, just get an extra sweep of the brush like that and you'll be fine. It is warm today in the UK. That is quite hilarious that we're painting autumn things. But you see, my leaves are the lines I'm doing of the serrated edges are very much sort of angled really sharply towards the edge, the point of the leaf. And they overlap into the shape so that we just see a little bit of them. And that is a really nice a Japanese maple leaf shape. But what we're going to do is we're going to take the rigger brush and take some of the Alizarin Crimson and I'm going to begin by just painting in the stalk, and by doing that I can just see how much of a bleed that made and therefore how dry the body of the leaf is. I'm going to give it another minute to dry and then we can paint in our leaf lines. So this is where the rigger brush is just the best brush for the job. You can take that colour and just send it up the leaf. How amazing is that? Just make sure you've got it nice and wet beforehand. There we go. So we'll just let those dry and we can rub out the pencil and we'll have our little study. And there you go, how satisfying to do a little study, to get out in nature. And yeah, it's just really nice to do sort of close up, far away things every now and then. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed that one. And we do have other nature journaling tutorials on the YouTube channel. But of course, the other thing you can do is, if you're really inspired to learn more, is you can find all sorts of projects like this in my new book, A Year of Watercolour, where we track the seasons and paint what we see, whether it's on your doorstep, on the windowsill, or once you've gone out for a walk. Thanks so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed that one. And remember, if you love that style of painting, then you'll find all sorts of lovely projects to get you really connected with nature in my brand new book, A Year of Watercolour, available with the episode notes below with the links. Right, I want to say a huge thank you to my patrons for their support, because that support enables us to keep creating videos like these that everyone can enjoy. And if you enjoyed it, then hit the like button and comment below to let me know how you got on with that project. And of course, if you never want to miss another video, then hit the subscribe button and the little notification bell, and we'll see you again next time. Bye!